about any particular part of the world. We just talked about Asia and the pivot, etc. We must pursue a policy as much as possible and practical of inclusion rather than exclusion. The moment you have a policy of exclusion of country A, B, or C, you will get this whole notion of is it really for the purpose intended, or is there some other reason? So a policy of inclusion, as the ambassador said, you include China in the exercises, etc. That's just one example, but there could be even more issues where everybody who is geographic, if it's a geographic arrangement, then there should be no exclusion. Then we can look in the mirror and say, yes, Cold War hat is off. We are now looking at Asia and peace. But that hasn't happened yet. Not because of lack of trying, but I think the human mind takes a while to change and think. So the more inclusion you'll have, it'll be faster, the conversion. And lastly, I would say again that the linkages and interdependencies I talked about earlier, that to me is critical to building trust and reducing the trust deficit and building trust in a positive way. So that's trade, that's investment, that's shared infrastructure, etc., etc. Every country, ladies and gentlemen, will do what they have to do to protect their interests. Having said that, there's much more which can be done to make everybody come together more. Today, even though pivot is being redefined, as I just heard, I don't follow it as closely as I should. I will now. I'll read all these articles. But I think in this process, we have to really communicate more, and communications are one part, but actions are key. So the moment is inclusive, everybody is at par. If you want to come in, you're welcome. If not, we'll keep talking. That's the way to do it. So I think having even a simple thing like exercises is a big symbolic is a symbolic gesture to the whole world that things are changing. But to say today that it is there, I'm sorry, I would not agree. Is it heading in the right direction? I hope it is, and I think it can, because everybody has the will. And I think more communication at the leadership level is needed to show that the pivot was not what people thought it is. Pivot is really a holistic concept of cooperation in every field. And that could include a bit of defense and security too. You look at the effort in the Southern Indian Ocean with the plane situation now. That's a classic example of cooperation, collaboration. And everybody's trying to help as much as they can. That to me is what I would like to see in everything we do. And the agendas come later. But I know the world is full of agendas.
So the crash of the Malaysian airliner raises an interesting question for you, Alyssa, focusing on South Asia. We have the American fleet, the Australian fleet, and the Chinese fleet suddenly in the Indian Ocean.
And the Indian fleet.
And the Indian fleet. Of course, they're always there. But the U.S. Pacific Command ends at Singapore. Do you think Indians would like to have the Pacific Command extend itself to include them, to be part of this great...
Actually, India is included in PACOM, but it's CENTCOM that then covers Pakistan and Afghanistan going to the west.
Right.
So that's where that same division
It's not quite the mighty 7th Fleet. And I'm wondering, do you think that there's any reason that India might find itself wanting to be part of this right now?
I think India is not interested in hosting a U.S. base, if that was your question. I think there's no doubt about that, but there is a very strong relationship between the U.S. and Indian militaries in terms of exercises, working together on humanitarian assistance planning. I think the search for the Malaysian airline is a great example of that. With other countries in the South Asian region, you also see the role that U.S. military engagement, particularly on disaster preparedness, has played an important role, a role of military diplomacy, you might say, and also helping countries prepare for what might be disaster-type situations. For example, in patrolling the coast of Bangladesh, where there are cyclones that hit with great regularity, or the collaboration that's multi-country in the Indian Ocean focused on counter-piracy that's brought together numerous countries, including India and Pakistan, actually, all working together. So there are different ways, I think, that it's possible to have a strong military engagement that may very well look quite different from the way U.S. engagement militarily in East Asia has looked for decades. And I think that's important to keep in mind.